Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels. It is Thursday. We are so close to championship weekend and watching a couple great football games. And, as the Packers season is over and we're sitting here just trying to get morsels of news to try and make content on the internet, it's days like today where, traditionally you come on and you blow something up that really isn't that big a deal and someone responds, slow news day. Well, today was a pretty slow news day. So I appreciate the fact that the headline, when you're talking about the Green Bay Packers, is the Dallas Cowboys' interest in assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia. Now, how realistic is this? How realistic is a potential, leap for Bisaccia to the head coaching gig in Dallas? Doesn't feel very close to happening. Doesn't feel like this is something that's imminent. Certainly, he has not interviewed for the job. In fact, the Cowboys, per Ed Werder's reporting, have not asked permission to the Packers to interview Rich Bisaccia. But man, this is a perfect storm. The fact that this all started with, I believe it was Josina Anderson putting out there, and this I think was late yesterday, about there was a mystery candidate essentially out there that the Cowboys had interest in. And then Pro Football Post did some sleuthing and reported that Rich Bisaccia was believed to be said mystery candidate. And then Joseph Hoyt, who covers the Cowboys, moved the ball forward a little bit, saying that the Cowboys had shown interest. Now, had being underlined, italicized, emphasized, had shown interest in Rich Bisaccia. And the fact that it made a bit of sense. Jerry Jones being familiar with Bisaccia, clearly having moved on from Mike McCarthy. They are in the midst of interviewing people. The Brian Schottenheimer news kind of percolated throughout the day. The fact that the Cowboys seemingly were closing in on a potential deal for Schottenheimer to become their coach. But then, the Jerry Jones wants a familiar face. Well, Bisaccia was a special teams coordinator in Dallas for a number of years. Clearly was the assistant head coach with the Raiders and then was their interim coach. Now with the Packers, has become their assistant head coach under Matt LaFleur. But then Ed Werder shot most of this down, saying that no, the Cowboys have not asked permission to interview Bisaccia, though he did add that he had spoken to Matt LaFleur about Bisaccia, and it sounds like Matt LaFleur can't say enough great stuff about Rich and his potential to become a head coach someday in the league. And that's where we land right now as we enter 5:04 Eastern. Who knows? Maybe while we're talking, there will be more news. But I do think it's interesting that Packers fans, because wow, I, obviously retweet it and I put it out there because it's of interest to Packers fandom. Man, a lot of you don't like Rich Bisaccia. Holy Toledo. And I understand the special teams struggles at times, some of the inconsistencies there. But do you remember where we came from? Do you remember where we were before he arrived? I get they're not the greatest special teams unit. I get they get penalized too much. I understand the return game isn't the dynamic presence it used to be when he first arrived with Keyshawn Nixon. But, man, look, I'm not saying that he was doing a bang-up job or he is doing a bang-up job as a special teams coordinator, but you can see how much Matt LaFleur values his presence on his staff by the fact that he did promote him to assistant head coach. Got to think there's a lot of different avenues, a lot of different areas in the building that Bisaccia is involved in outside of just special teams. Now, I know special teams is why he was hired, and the fact that there are continued frustrations in that area. Most recently, probably point to the playoff game, the fumble, and the missed kick. And you go back to the final game of the regular season and the fake return punt touchdown by the Bears. All of that is fresh in the minds of Packers fans. No question about it. At some point, though, I will kind of maybe not back up Rich Bisaccia, but I will point out that the players have to execute at some point. Bisaccia ain't making them fumble. Bisaccia ain't making them follow the path of a football that doesn't exist. I mean, how hard is it if you have punt left on to go to the left instead of following the blockers that are going to an imaginary reception? Now obviously you want to drill that all in all week because they've run that before, etc. I get it. I understand. But the idea that, around the league, Bisaccia seems to be pretty well regarded. The Packers fans are like, no, throw him away. My favorite is he's making too much money. His salary's too high for this. Like, what his salary is. Well, you have access to the books now, the books that no one can see. Interesting. Real interesting. Again, it ain't your money. But that's where we are right now. I think it is, somewhat telling that, the reporting around this has kind of gesticulated throughout the day. Who knows where we might end up tonight and or tomorrow. I don't think Bisaccia is going anywhere. I believe he's entering the last year of his deal, but I do think he'll be back next year. But hey, we'll see how all of this transpires going forward. It is something interesting to keep an eye on. Let's just say that. Other news and notes around the green and gold today. The Packers did announce their annual tailgate tour, and some big current names going out on the bus with Mark Murphy on his final journey here around the state. For those of you who don't know, each and every year the Packers do what they call their tailgate tour to, try and put players and the franchise in front of people who may not have the opportunity to get up to Lambeau Field and see a game and experience the Packers firsthand that way. They do it each and every year, and each and every year they have a handful of current players with some Packers alumni that get on board and make a trip around the state. And this year, your current players are Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, and Lucas Van Ness. And your alumni players are Amon Green, Jermichael Finley, and John Michaels. That's a pretty damn good lineup. I know the press release today mentioned that the tour will start in Milwaukee, go to Madison and La Crosse and Wausau. What's up, Wausau? Before wrapping up in Green Bay on April 12th. It launches on April 8th. So if you're in any of those, in or around any of those areas, and you want to see and meet the Green Bay Packers, mark your calendars. It's going to be a lot of fun. The final kind of news of the day is the Green Bay Packers were shut out, snubbed, as it were, on the day when the Oscars nominations are released. They also released the NFL Associated Press Award nominations, as it were, and not a single Green Bay Packers player or coach was among them. I'm not going to say too much here because I'm going to do a different separate video about this, but I will say Edgerrin Cooper, he got robbed. He straight up got robbed. That's straight up theft for Edgerrin Cooper not to even get considered. I'm not saying he should win it, but to not even be considered for Defensive Rookie of the Year, not even considered. You suspect, AP. You suspect. Hello to everybody in the comment section. So good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well. A lot of people chiming in already. Good to see everybody. Before we get going, let's give a shout out to our good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com, use code CHTV, spend $5 on lineups, and get $50 instantly. Prize Picks is available in 43 different states, most importantly, including Wisconsin. Get to it, people. There's a link right here, description of the video. Use code CHTV. All right, people. What do you got for me? Matthew Wilson, how are you, man? Anybody you'd prefer to get the defensive line coach gig? That was the other kind of tiny bit of news, is that Rodgers, the defensive line coach from the Bucs, is taking the same job with the Detroit Lions. That is the gentleman who interviewed with Matt LaFleur and the Packers earlier this week. I'm still team Aaron Whitecotton, although I do believe he'll probably end up wherever Saleh ends up. But I think he'd be a perfect fit, knows the scheme very well, has a pretty decent history of getting production out of whoever he's had to work with. That would be my preference. But yeah, ultimately what we as fans and media think is pretty immaterial. Mimsy, what's going on, man? Wonka voice. Stop. Don't come back. The number of times, Mimsy, that I saw that in reference to this news about Bisaccia today is infinity. The number is infinity. What else we got? Ed, how are you, man? A chat from yesterday reminded me about this. There are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of inquisitive idiots. Bear fans? Ed, that's an excellent way to phrase it. Very well done. Ooh, Rob Kress right here, getting busy with it, getting down to business right away on Facebook. Get number 80 in the Hall of Fame. Justin Perillo, I totally agree. I'm kidding. Donald Driver, we talked to him a bit about that when we were on the live stream. We were watching the Seahawks game here on Cheesehead TV. Look, let's get Sterling in first, all right? And then we'll start talking about Donald, maybe Jordy, etc. But man, we got to get Sterling in the Hall before anything else. We got to rectify a long time wrong before we start banging the drum for Donald Driver. Totally get it. Love Donald. All-time leading receiver in Packers history. Should certainly be in the consideration, at least, for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They always talk about, well, you can't tell the story of the NFL without him. Well, the man bridged two legendary quarterbacks in Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, won a Super Bowl with Rodgers, ended his career as the all-time leading receiver for one of, if not the greatest professional NFL franchise. I mean, the man should at least be talked about, right? I get it. Joe, how are you, man? Goody goes into this draft with less draft capital than he's used to. Increase the chances Packers move down out of the first round. Yeah, I've seen this a lot. Like, yeah, he's had a couple of drafts now where he's gone in with extra picks, but he's still got his full allotment. It's not like he's been trading away a ton of picks willy-nilly. Does it increase the chance that he trades down? Maybe. I do think at some point, though, 2 years in a row, you've had the youngest team in the league. Maybe you hope you're growing and developing these guys. There's not enough room to bring in a 10, 11, 12 team, person draft class each and every year. I do think he loves the idea of, getting those bunch of those day 3 guys and seeing what sticks and getting cheap labor. And I understand that. But at some point, maybe you take a swing or two. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's next. But I don't think that's going to compel him too much to suddenly want to trade down for that reason. Jeff, if Mark Murphy is going, Corey must be going as well. See, look, the whole point of the tailgate tour is to go visit folks who can't get to Lambeau Field. Corey's right across the street from Lambeau Field. He doesn't need to go on no tailgate tour. Come on now. Jake, how are you, man? Despite our coaches being poached over the decades, the green and gold will stay relevant in the NFC. I think this is the best test of sustained success. Ooh, a lot of S's there. Yeah, I think they have a really good program. I think they've done an excellent job, they being the Green Bay Packers, of, making sure that there is sustained success. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean there haven't been frustrations, and maybe a time or two when they could have taken maybe a bit of a bigger swing rather than worrying so much about the future to try and get over that hump and win a championship at times. But for the most part, I agree with you. Brian, this is a good question because I've seen it quite a bit and it keeps coming up, and I did want to address it. And thanks for checking out the stream, man. In regards to our defensive line, do you believe we have the right players but lack the right scheme/coaching, or do we need some different players to be able to get consistent pressure on the quarterback? It's going to be fascinating to see how this offseason plays out, because I know kind of the narrative I've seen form off of both Matt and Brian's final pressers of the year is that, well, it's pretty clear, especially once they fired Rebrovich, well, they think they've got the horses, right? And I do think that's true to an extent, but I do not doubt for a moment that Brian is going to continue to look to build along the defensive front, whether that's edge, whether that's guys along the interior. You can never have enough. And to my eyes, the best teams usually, not always, but usually are able to get after a quarterback in waves. to bring fresh bodies throughout a game who, when you do so, there isn't a huge drop off. And I just think in today's NFL, and you heard it was Brian said it, like the preferred way that teams want to get after it is with four. But when you can't, you've got to resort to some of the kind of simulated pressures, more exotic stuff. And there's no doubt that that sometimes can hamstring your defensive coordinator. I do think that they've got enough on hand to make it work up to a point. They can certainly be better than they were this last year. But I 100% think that they should continue to look, and I think they will, to bring talent in. I think mostly the focus will probably be along the interior. I don't doubt for a moment that they think they've got the talent necessary on the edge. They just need to be coached up and utilized better. That's my guess. This is all it is a guess. Nathan says, hello from Cuba. Well, hello from New York City. Hope you're taking care of yourself, Nathan. Thanks for checking in. Kyle, thanks for the super chat, man. I hope the Packers sign the new defensive line coach soon. Lions already snatched up Casey. Also, here we go with another new Bears head coach doing the most prematurely. It's in the blood. It's in the water in Chicago. You know that. But yeah, I've seen some hand wringing about the Lions, signing Casey Rogers, but it's like we don't know where he was in the pecking order. Doesn't sound like, at least there's been no reporting that the Packers offered him a deal, So can we just take a breath, let it play out, see who comes in, and then we'll be on our way. It's like last year when the Packers, quote unquote, missed out on Zach Orr, who went to the Ravens and whose squad struggled mightily there early in the season, though he did an excellent job of turning things around. The Packers ended up with Jeff Hafley. That turned out okay. Even though everyone was wringing their hands and going crazy when the Packers didn't get Orr, it turned out all right. The guy they got was pretty good. So I'm just saying, just take a breath. And I'm Kyle. I'm not saying you're freaking out. I'm just the Packers fans in general. Take a breath. See how it plays out. It's going to be okay. Sean Patrick O'Donnell. The NFL is always hating on the Packers. Well, okay, let's put this in perspective. I think this is in reference to the AP awards and no Packers being nominated. To be clear, that's the Associated Press. That's not the NFL. I mean, the Pro Football Writers of America had both Edgerrin Cooper and Evan Williams on their kind of end of year team, right? So, it's not the NFL. Although I will say, the one place the NFL has been hating on the Packers is not giving Matt LaFleur a home game in week 1. That guy's been in town for 6 years. Ain't never opened up a season at Lambeau Field. What the fuck is that about? Time to change that. Absolutely. Jeezy Baby 43. I heard Jeezy Baby 43 is available for defensive line coach. If you would like, I can submit your name. I will send it to 1265 Lombardi, and we'll see what happens. Matthew Wilson, thanks to the super chat, man. Easiest prize pick bet, Van Ness under 0.5 sacks. Oh, what's so funny is there were weeks I looked for that, and it wasn't available. But you are correct. That would be an easy call. But they're pretty smart over there at Prize Picks. Jeff Smith, thanks so much. Bears already win in the offseason, and the Bears still suck. It's not an offseason unless the Bears are touting whatever nonsense they're doing, and Bears fans in particular are being really loud and on the internet. It's the way it works. Ryan Willie, how are you, man? In my opinion, Sharp would still be the record holder if he didn't have a neck injury. Best Packers wide receiver ever. Well, Ryan, yes, I very much agree with that first sentiment. I do think Don Hudson is the man as far as you're talking about all-time receivers. He still holds records, and I do think Sterling Sharp is the greatest Packers player I ever saw with my own 2 eyes. I'll definitely say that. And he's certainly long overdue to be in the Hall of Fame. An absolute man among boys when he played. Oh, Josh, that's a great question. Out of all the teams coming to Green Bay next season, who would you want to see the Packers open with? Oh, I got to remember who they're. Hold on a second. 2025. Got to refresh my memory here on who their opponents are coming to home games. Obviously, division guys, and then the Eagles, Commanders, Ravens, Bengals, and Panthers. I want to open against the Eagles. They ended the season. Let's start the season. Let's start the season against them once again. Yes, I know we opened against them last year in Brazil. I want to open against them in Lambeau Field. I would love that. I doubt the NFL would do it, but I would adore that. But what I think will probably happen is it'll be the Bears. Bears at Lambeau, week 1. Let's go. That's what I want. I mean, if LaFleur can open his tenure in Chicago, Johnson can open his tenure in Green Bay. Makes all the sense in the world to me. Spencer, what's up? If the last month of Packers football has taught me anything, it's that I am so happy I'm a fan. They play in Lambeau Field and seemingly always play meaningful ball in December. Love our team. Spencer, you're going to get, some hate from some real Debbie Downers in the world, but you have a very healthy outlook, and it is a very good perspective that you're viewing this through. Yes, 1000% appreciate it. Soak it in each and every December, because lots of teams and lots of fan bases have no idea what it's like to be playing meaningful ball down the stretch in the winter, going into Lambeau, etc. Like, that idea, that whole feeling is alien to so many fan bases. 1000% soak it in, man. Ryan Willie, how are you, man? Green Bay versus Dallas on Thanksgiving? I would love it. Doesn't have the same pop now that Mike's not going to be there, but I'd love it. I've come around on Thanksgiving games. Give me all the Thanksgiving games. Still don't like the Christmas games, but I'm in on some Thanksgiving games. All right, buddy. I'm going to have to get going. Cannot thank you guys enough for hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Please do me a monster favor. Hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then tell your friends and tell your family, Cheesehead TV. We are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. Go Pack Go.